Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. All opinions are those of the speakers. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break. We'd like to welcome you to the 44th, can you believe it, 44th podcast of the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. We thought we'd never make 10, and here we are at 44. Today we have a new person that you haven't seen before, but a new person to Santa Cruz, and we'd like to introduce you to Will Kahn. Give us a little shake there, Will, or wave, because otherwise they'll think it's me. There you are. And over on the other side of that thing is the illustrious Mr. Hoover. So what we thought we'd hope today to do would be to get maybe a little welcome Will and give us a little background, and then Richard's got some things to say about NAMM, and I know there's some exciting stuff that's coming up. So let's roll. Welcome, Will.
Welcome,
Well,
Will.
thank you very much. It's absolutely a pleasure, obviously coming into such a well-established company. We did just come back from the NAMM show, and I walked around with my name badge, which says Santa Cruz Guitar Company. And it's obviously the instruments are really beautiful, and I'm thrilled to learn about all these different guitar models and the different woods and what makes these guitars so special. But also there's a real beautiful community built around this company that, all sorts of people, oh, say hi to Richard, or, there's a real, you can see the light in people's eyes when they start talking about these things. And so it's, beyond just making really incredible instruments, there's a, family and community around it. So it was really a joy to feel that, reflected in face-to-face at the NAMM show. So a bit about my background. I think that when I was born in a small town called Bolinas, which is in West Marin. My dad, Will Kahn, is a publisher of books and is known for was part of the pre-hippie movement of kind of going back to the earth. He used to work on kind of a catalog called the Whole Earth Catalog, which a lot of people knew of. He calls it the Google before the internet, where it was this big oversized booklet that just taught you everything about, you could get how to build a chicken coop, or how to do a raised bed, or on and on and on. And so he really he built the house that I was born in. I was born in 1979 out on a dirt road out in Bolinas, in a house that my dad had built. And so this idea of doing things with your hands and special wood and things like this, that's literally what I was born into. And so I lived up there for 18 years, and Santa Cruz has always been a real special place for me as I was getting into music, and I also used to surf. It was a real obvious choice to get down here to Santa Cruz, and I haven't left. So I've been here for, I think, 26 years since I came down at 17 years old, and just, happily have been stuck here ever since. So I came down here and started playing music when I was maybe 13. I really found Led Zeppelin, and I wanted to play drums like John Bonham, and my parents said, here's an acoustic guitar. You're not going to be playing drums. When you go to college, you can get your drum. So I started playing acoustic guitar. That was really the first way I really got into music, learning Cream and Creedence Clearwater and Led Zeppelin songs, Beatles songs, as much as I could by ear. And so that was really my introduction to my love of music, was through the acoustic guitar. And I played in a band for many years, playing drum set, percussion, guitar, and bass for about 12 years full time. And then once I started, I had my first child, I started working in the recording studio. And from there, I started a career in sales and marketing for an electronics company called Burl Audio, based out of Santa Cruz. And what really got me going was one day going into the recording studio I was working at, and the owner of the studio was also the owner of this electronics company, and he had a picture of Robert Plant, the singer of Led Zeppelin, holding the gear that, you know, I was using and that he was making. And I thought, my God, I need to figure out a way to be involved with this. You know, I probably won't meet Robert Plant, which I never had, but I wanted to learn from the people recording him. And so that's what I did for 12 years. We brought this gear all over the world. And after maybe about 4 or 5 years, I stopped asking all these famous engineers if they'd ever heard of this brand. You know, at a certain point, everyone knew what it was and was widely accepted as really the best, as a no compromise way to bring the best sound into a digital recording. So everything now is on computers. Technology has really changed, but there was still something missing. And so through a no compromise design, not what's going to make us the most money, not what's going to be most marketable, but if you just go to build something to make it be the best it can be for Robert Plant, you know, that's your end customer, not a million kids in the basement. That was really what Burl stood for, was making something the very best of the best. So, you know, coming here into Santa Cruz, it's a different world because I've been in pro audio for the last 12 years. But having, you know, seeing what goes into these instruments, having played a few of them, it feels very similar in the sense of a no compromise, you know, not how do we pull something, you know, pull the wool over someone's eyes so they buy our product, but the opposite. How do we empower someone by teaching them about what we do that's as great as we can possibly make it? So yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here. Working, you know, with Richard has really been a treat so far, and I think he is really well respected and admired out in the industry, and it's really wonderful to see. Kind of when he wasn't around at the NAMM show, and I just got to talk with people, they feel part of something, you know, bigger than just selling, you know, instruments, and so that's what really feels really as enticing to me to be here. Not only are the instruments, of course, really, really great, but there's a heart behind it. You know, there's something more than just that. So I'll leave it at that. If there's any further questions you guys want to know, please let me know. But really thrilled to be here, and thanks again for having me.
Welcome, Will.
So was there a house at NAMM this year?
Was there
Was there a house at NAMM this year?
No.
There wasn't anything traditional, including all the landmarks between like LAX or Orange County Airport and the convention center were different. You know,
Yeah.
I begin to tell you how many things have changed down there. The whole experience was only the same once you were sitting talking with an old friend, and then it felt like the old days. But the format was really interesting. It was anybody familiar with this? There used to be about 5 big giant halls: A, B, C, D, E, and E was us in the basement. And this time it was just one big room. They magically brought in all the walls to make it look full, and they labeled them as A, B, and C. So in there were a lot of traditional booths and so forth of vendors and instrument makers. A real absence of the giant ones. You know, I didn't see Fender there. It's possible I missed some stuff, but I didn't see Gibson. And then a lot of the people that you would want to see didn't display products. What they had is they had these little small white cubicles that didn't even have signage on them. But for $5,000, you could rent a 10 by 10 and a chair and a table. Have people come in and talk to you. We passed on that. I thought that this would be just a good reconnaissance, for going in and thinking about next April when they plan to have the winter show. No talk about a summer show. So this is kind of like laying the scenario for it. But what was there was this essential nutritional element that we've been missing for 3 years. And that was the human contact with people that have become really good friends over the years. And I'm sure I've made this statement before, but it's remarkable how close you can come to somebody, only seeing them once a year, but you do that for a few decades. And the nature of the relationship is such as if you were stuck in an elevator with somebody for 4 hours, right? You know a lot more about them than most of their friends do under those circumstances. And that's what the NAMM show camaraderie was like. And I did meet some of those, so some great, great old stalwarts of the industry. Dick Boak, who did a really cool line drawing. You might be familiar with Dick. Was the kind of artistic director, artist relations, and in some cases the face of the company for Martin Guitars for many, many years. And great artist. And Ren Ferguson in the same context. And Rand Smith, who's writing a book on modern acoustic guitar building, happened to be there and want to interview us all at the same time. So it was a really good get together, tell stories of the olden days where we're going. And Ren's actually building with his son now under his own brand. And Ren was the custom department at Gibson, really well known in the industry. And then I stopped in and visited some of the important larger manufacturers. I got friends at Takamine and Eastman, and I shamelessly tried to pitch our strings to them. As everybody knows, we spent years and years developing our strings, and we truly have something. We have a tiger by the tail with these advancements in string technology. I shouldn't say advancements, just capturing the stuff that we didn't get before because our strings were dumbed down to cost $10 or $15. Once we put the effort into it, we could make a string that sounds better, plays better, lasts longer. So the idea is not to sell oodles of strings. It's more to support our own habit of great strings for our guitar. And with that, we need to make enough of them to have an economy of scale and get the price down. So wouldn't it be a thrill to have one of those companies use our strings on at least their best instruments? So there's a self-promoting stuff. Guitar sales, it's always the same phenomena. We've sold our guitars for the next year and a half. We don't go there to make sales. We go there to maintain relationships and hear what people have to say. Times like this, when you question, is it worth the expense to go to the NAMM show? We could, in the olden days, renting the house, having the booth, and the expenses could cost us $20,000 to $30,000 to do. So when the opportunity of not going during COVID came up, or even today, companies go, geez, I can save a whole lot of money by not going. Maybe we don't need the show anymore. But my answer to that is we go there for the opportunities that we don't know exist until we get there. And then that's when you find out the value of the show. New friendships, old friendships, connections in business, the stuff that makes the world go around. So that was there on a smaller scale. And I don't mean to dismiss the efforts of the NAMM organization because it was a miracle they pulled that off. The cost of running a convention center is astronomical, and you have to book it years and years and years in advance. And that's why we see the NAMM show on such odd times, in June instead of January, etc. So, though, as you might have noticed, the world's upended, and NAMM is part of it. And I really hope we get to go back next year as exhibitors. How's that for a head full?
I have to. It's good, and it takes me back to my years doing unbelievable amounts of trade shows.
It's your way of life.
Yeah. In the visual world, and it just you're absolutely right about getting to meet people and seeing people, and it's the same as music. I mean, if you play with an act and then you don't see that act for 6 months, when they open for you again, or you open for them, or you're both in the same place, it's like the situation's never changed. It's pretty wonderful, that reconnection. I do have to know about one product that was down there.
Oh,
Did
Yeah.
you see the stick-on relic guitar, electric guitar stuff? There
oh,
is,
you mean it's like
it's a
uh,
vinyl and
instant already been chewed?
yeah, instant wear. And it was a stick-on. You know Eric Garcia, the guitarist, the jazz guitarist. Eric and I
Yeah,
are,
that is fun. That's really fun.
yeah, I wanted to see if somebody else had seen that besides him. He got to me and he said, "Oh, you just got to see this. It's a stick-on glue." And it's like, yeah, 30 years of wear.
You know, I miss a lot of that, and it's really too bad. And I certainly don't mean this as any kind of hubris. I've been at this for half a century, so I know a lot of people just by tenacity and durability. But I can't make progress in the show. I can't go very far without engaging in a conversation with somebody.
Isn't
And
that
my
great?
best attempt, especially when we have a stand there, to walk the floor and see things, I can't move very fast. It's also really exhausting to try to take in. People paid a lot of money to attract your attention, and they do it with lights and noise and color. And as you guys know, pretty soon you've lost 60% of your English vocabulary, and you can't keep your balance. I mean, it's really disifying. So when we were in stands at the booth, usually I'd really limit my forays. I'd have a destination to go to and come back from. And this time I just couldn't make much progress. So I didn't get to see the really cool stuff.
Well, everybody knows that to sell a fine musical instrument, it takes random light, random noise, and random color.
That's right. That's right. Now, I do, some of the things, when the NAMM show was a little more affordable, there was stalwarts like the stump fiddle, the guy that had a broomstick with bells and horn honking and a violin bow that you can do on a string, are long gone. They've been priced out.
I love it. I love it. Any memorable meals? That's what I remember about everybody talking about NAMM, was more the meals that everybody sneak out to, and there's apparently a great taco place or something like that's just huge. But how many people do you think were there? Because boy,
we could grab that attendance. It was hard to tell because it was I gauge it by how crowded it was. The old shows, I would think throughout the day, compare it to previous years, and know by percentage how many more people were there. This one, I'm going to say, if we were judging it by the old show, was kind of a little below average in attendance. There was a lot of room to move. There was never a time where I can take it back. There was a couple of bottlenecks where I had to negotiate between people, but I got really, really good at making tracks in a big crowd by knowing how to people that had their mouth open staring at the ceiling, plodding along. So kind of medium in attendance. But don't forget, I will tell you about some meals.
okay.
Let me segue to that.
Yeah.
So as you guys know, I'm not only not a keeper of secrets, but I'm a real proponent for open source and information. But I made an exception in some of the places around Anaheim where I did not want the word to get out, so we couldn't go there ourselves. And one of them is Los Sanchez, that's now on I can't remember the name of the road. I want to give him credit. It was at the very dead end of West Avenue from the convention center, and we used to keep this really secret. It was a pretty small Mexican family restaurant, and you ate on tables and kind of a jerry-rig patio, and the tables were covered in plastic gingham, and the food was both buffet, and then they made stuff for you, and it was loud, and it was full of firemen and policemen and working class people, and it was so authentic I couldn't believe it. And we take our guests there, and most people would be astounded, and especially people who hadn't had really good Mexican food before. But there were some Scandinavians and Germans couldn't understand it at all. You know, what is this? And you describe, you know, if you describe a tostada, a taco, and a enchilada to somebody that's never seen them, they all sound like the same thing, you know. So I took Will there, and they have a new place. They've been wildly successful, and we went early, but it's traditionally just jam packed now. They've really grown, but it's still a great place to go. It's a really
Right.
good experience and really, really good food. And unlike when we first started going to the show, where it catered to Disneyland rather than convention center, a lot of it was kid oriented and franchise and things like that. But there was still a remnant of family owned places. One of our favorites was Belial's Big Food, and it was just what it sounded like. It was like Sunday dinner, and obscene amounts of food. And all those places are gone now. So you have to go out a little bit to find like good Thai or Italian and things like that.
So what's new at the shop?
Oh man, we're doing more experiments at once than we usually do. But it's a real thrill for me. You know, I can't have my rest with stasis and okayness. I want to do the next thing. And we've got a couple of really great things cooking. We've made great progress in our our string studies, acoustic technology, and so forth, led us to some real advances in wood evaluation. And as you guys know, I've spent a career really learning how to deal with wood, assess its tonal potential when it's in the raw, know how to work it to get consistency, and know how to manipulate it to get custom variations. So the farther back you can go in a piece of wood to know what its potential is and how to work it makes it a whole lot easier to choose your wood in the first place. Or in the case of somebody that doesn't have my 50 years of experience, to trust a source that this wood will do what you want when you put it in the guitar. And everything that I sense by feeling, flexing, sight, sound, I'd taste it if I could, but I do smell it. All those add up to this empirical body of knowledge that tell me how to hand a piece of wood to get the results I want and to guarantee a customer they'll get the guitar they want in their sound. But that's fragile. It's all in my head. And although I've taught others in the company, it's almost like talking about philosophy or a concept. Can that person take it and replicate it? Or is it going to be an endless telephone game where it transmorgifies and people assume they know what you're talking about? So I don't need a legacy by any means, but I want the continuity not only for Santa Cruz Guitar Company to continue to do this, but as an open source for the world. I think it'd be astounding accomplishment and legacy if the cheapest guitars could be made to sound good. You know, you didn't have to suffer like a crummy, boxy, non-sustaining, non-rich, full creative sound in a guitar. You could get it. And so that body of knowledge, my career goal has been to translate that to a scientific vocabulary, and that's not something I have, but can be learned. Excuse me. And working with other professionals and scientists to be able to put what I'm doing in a scientific vocabulary, and then be able to quantify it through measurement. And we have these components of information that, with my knowledge of what it does, we can put those together and have something that's useful for somebody else to use to either take a piece of wood that's verified, or we know ourselves that's the right wood to use for a guitar, the weight of bracing to put on it, how to carve the bracing, and how to get the results you want. So I did all that without taking a breath, so I wouldn't forget anything. That is a huge undertaking from the beginning, and I had a few false starts. But but now we really have what we need, and there's the refinement necessary to put it into a practical application. That's go ahead.
What will the end
What
game
did they
be?
say?
Well, what's the end game on this? What is it? What does it come out to when you're done? Does it come out with some kind of verification process of wood, or is it, is it a book? Is it a video? Is it a machine?
The end result is I've been entertained. I have fulfillment. I was purposeful. I don't question who I am, what I'm doing, because I'm busy. And I don't mean that to sound silly at all. I can trip on the outcomes, the legacy, and so forth. I can also take one step at a time towards a goal and wait for the purposes to unfold in front of that. And that's truly the case in this, that I know it's valuable, I know it's valuable to others, and I know it could change the way that people not only make guitars, but drumsticks or other acoustic undertakings, and make the world a better place. That's all I really need is an end game, and the application of it will unfold before us. And there's a little bit of that I have to keep proprietary, just because the other people involved have, I should have put my phone in a bucket before I got a Zoom call. I have other people involved, including some graduate students, that this stuff has to be open source, but it can't be published before it's finished. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I don't mean to be coy or like, oh, that's a big secret. I'm just not at liberty to explain those end goals and purpose, but it's a whole lot bigger than me, and it's a whole lot bigger than guitar making.
Sometimes you do the science just to do the science. So
I didn't quite hear you, Tad. Is it me or you?
I said, sometimes you do the science just to do the science. And
that's kind of what I was saying at first, and I wasn't facetious about that. I've got a calling, I'm driven towards it. And if I spent too much time assessing the outcome and therefore qualifying whether or not I want to pursue it, I'll go nowhere. I can overthink anything.
That's what pure science really is you don't approach it knowing what your goal is. You approach it in order to find out where it takes you.
I thank you. That's really helpful. One of the great symbioses I've had is I'm fascinated by the scientific method. I honor it. I use it in my everyday life. I certainly use it in guitar making, but I'm not a scientist by heart. I'm an artist. And so the symbiosis working with science, people that are really into the scientific discipline, the mathematics, the calculus and so forth involved in quantifying sound into a vocabulary. I can't understand what they do, but I can point out things to them that seems to be revelatory, that move us along the path towards what we want. And my first start in this was really, people were saying, well, that information's already out there. You just talk to people in acoustic physics. Because there have been a lot of people that had modeled the sound of guitars and come and written thesis, and there you go. But they didn't know what they're looking for, right? They could show how the guitar moves. They could maybe recommend how you do that to a consistent look, but they didn't know what it sounded like. So they weren't giving any information that was useful for a luthier to improve their sound of their instruments. And
sounds like people who do their own research.
Yeah, well, it's noble. It's it's good, but the same people are doing this are the people that are trying to figure out how to build a submarine or a Scud missile so it doesn't break apart from vibration, at high speed. It's all great service, but they weren't coming close to the magic of how a guitar sounds. And of course, any magic is explainable in physics and science, and it doesn't make any less exciting and valuable. So again, that symbiosis has been great. It's scientists that are willing to listen to something that's not within their discipline, and an idea that sparks an inquiry that brings us to what we are. And this has been, this has been hit or miss for over 20 years. But we've been really intense on it for probably the last 8. And I realize I'm being a real pill here because I'm not giving concrete information. I just want to give you the feeling of what this discovery might be like. Now, there's other people that I really, really admire in our business that have done similar things and are doing similar things, and their discoveries are equally valid, but they all need to come together in a format that, let's say, a company making thousands of guitars a day, getting the price down really low so music can be affordable to people that can't pay a big price. To improve the sound of those guitars and allow those people to be more creative because they're inspired. That's a great thing to do. And that if anything is probably my final goal, and that I've done my part. I've done my paying forward to make the world a better place. And anybody listening to me for the first time going, whew, I wonder how that guy runs a business. And that sounds out there, but you guys know that that's the driving force behind what Santa Cruz Guitar Company is.
Yeah, without question.
And I think it makes a lot of sense to not want to release information until you really have things sussed out. I mean, the last couple of years have kind of shown a lot of people that releasing information before you really have things truly understood and sussed out leads to an awful lot of misinformation. And
especially when everybody can publish their own newspaper from home today.
Yeah. So well, that's intriguing.
Well, if you have questions, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll segue into how this ties into our string.
No, go for it.
Yeah. Go.
So the same principles that drive a guitar top work in strings. And I said this earlier, there's way smarter, more resourceful people than me. My favorite string company is D'Addario, and those guys are brilliant. They hire brilliant people, and they support the arts. They're just, they're perfect in my eye. And they know their market really, really well. And they make strings for violin players that cost over $100 for 4 strings, right? $25 a string. But guitar players are, for whatever reason, expect to pay 10 or 15 bucks, and they get what they pay for. So any big company that knows their stuff would know how to make a better string, but they don't see the market for it. Our motivation wasn't a market. It was just like anything on our guitar to come up with the best we can possibly do. So, we're not satisfied with case manufacturing, gear manufacturing. We design our own and have them made to our specs. And this is what we did with strings. And it took dealing with three different entities, one for the core wire, one for the ball end, and one for the precision wind of the string to get it. And in some senses, I go, why didn't somebody else do that first? But we also had the advantage of the acoustic physics background to not have to do a lot of trial and error to get there. So it sounds preposterous, but the goal is, let's make a string that sounds better, plays easier, and lasts longer. And I hadn't even thought of longevity, to tell you the truth. But that was a byproduct of the precision of manufacturing. Turned out to be even better for longevity than coating them did. And I might add this: are they coated? Well, it's arguable. It's exposed to an atmosphere that's anti-corrosive. Does that leave a film on it? I don't know, maybe microscopically, but it's not coated in the sense that people think about. So anyway, we focused on tensions, because that's truly the only measure. Gauge is only the measure of the dimension of the string, and that tension can change depending on the manufacturer. So GHS, D'Addario, Pyramid, Clear Tone, they all have different tensions for the same gauge. And that's no way to have consistency in the sound of your instrument. So the gauges in ours sometimes are fractional, like it's not a 20, it's not a 22 thousandths or a 23 thousandths, it's a 22 and a half thousandths. So now we're confident enough in doing our low tension and our mid tension, which are like light medium, that now we can extrapolate that into a DADGAD set, which the world really needed, and that's now available. We also do a baritone set, not because there was a market for it, just we didn't have a baritone string for our baritone and we needed it. And that's a big breakthrough. We're also doing a 12-string set, which is another one that seemed to be just kind of a hodgepodge to meet a bizarre consumer segment. And as you guys know, we take our 12 strings deadly seriously. So in all that noise, we now have DADGAD, baritone, and 12-string sets available. And that's busy. You know, one of Will's jobs is to help us introduce those to the right markets so that we can control the demand to some degree. I don't want to be a manufacturer or a mass marketer. I want to support a string habit for us, and so we want to control how much that is, and we'll also would like to be able to get paid really well for selling a lot of strings. So I hope that doesn't sound oxymoronic.
I haven't.
Well, you know, the baritone set in particular, I mean, it was always amazing to me that you'd go out on the market for baritone strings and you'd find sets that ran from, you know, the bass string, to say that, anywhere from like 60 thousandths all the way up to like 110 thousandths. And it would be like, you know, are they pulling these off of a suspension bridge somewhere?
You're right, and it's very much like that analogy I had between science trying to model a guitar's sound. Oh, great, you did that, but how do you use that to make the guitar sound better? They didn't know what the guitar sounded like, and they couldn't get there. Same thing with the strings. Unless you experience playing like a baritone or a bass or an alternative stringed instrument, you just take a guess at those and you try gauges. But unless you balance those tensions, you don't get the potential of that instrument. And when you do a baritone right, it just sounds like a piano. We've had a couple of people, I'm thinking of Scott Law and a really busy performing studio artists that play a baritone and they're writing a new repertoire. They're inspired, they're doing something completely different, even going in different genres of music, because the voice is so inspiring. It's pretty remarkable. I'm surprised there's not more demand for them.
Well,
but again, how many people can afford, a good guitar and then try something new?
Yeah, I think what we heard back from Joe Summers, who was our last one of our last podcasts, is he got some of the DADGAD strings, and it truly blew his mind how much better his guitar sounded. And that's unsolicited, but
that's great to hear.
He loved
I'm a little insulated sometimes from that feedback.
Yeah, I was gonna say the baritone set is the same way. I mean, I think a lot of people, they get their first baritone and you would go online on the forums and people were recommending these sets of strings that were almost impossible to play, and they didn't take into account the scale length or the tuning. It was like, just put these really heavy strings on and try different things. And it's frustrating to experience that. And to finally have a set of strings that really works, especially since, your baritones, the 27-inch scale, I think is really just a wonderful compromise, without getting too sticking out there trying to play something.
Well, it just doesn't work. If you look at the acoustic basses or the baritones that are out on the market, it's like two people got together, a player and a designer, and they compromised. And so most of them have the bridge in a really inefficient position, not an optimal position. As you shorten the scale length, you can either go north or south, right? And if you go south, you move the bridge towards the non-resonating part of the tail of the body. And you saw a lot of acoustic basses where the bridge is only a few inches from the tail. And those had to be plugged in. Starting with the bridge in the right spot, you can only, there's only, you can't go any further south. You have to go north. And that's going to be by joining the body at some unconventional fret, not the 12th, not the 14th, that length. And seriously, a longer length and more tension, maybe that's manageable for somebody who wants to pursue it further, but it isn't for me, the secret to success in getting close to perfection is asking the next question, making the next improvement, and the next, and the next, and the next. And the 98% is a pretty good goal. But that other 2% might take you 1,000 times longer to get than the first 98%. And or maybe I'm just not smart enough. I don't know. But that 27-inch scale, that's as far as I've taken it so far. Phew.
Oh, I mean,
it's the one. Yeah.
you have a sets of strings for most every instrument you make. I don't know how many acoustic basses you're making anymore, but
we don't promote it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. I want to answer that question. Yeah. We don't promote it. We don't promote our FTC. And a couple of models that are really hard to find, or guitar styles really hard to find, because they require so much handwork and sometimes my own work that we cannot guarantee a delivery date, and that's just bad business. So we will make our true acoustic bass on request. We just don't beg for it, and they're really fun.
Right.
Really
No, that they are. But I'm just saying that you've now got basically your own strings for virtually every instrument you make, unless I'm missing something. I mean, is there another set of strings you have in the back of your head that you would like to make? That
yeah, I want to make an octave mandolin. You might sell 2 in a lifetime, but I'm really fascinated with that. I have a history with working with mandolins and carved-topped instruments, and it's just bandwidth. You can't do it all, and I didn't know that in my youth. I thought I could make every guitar possible due to the Tour de France and whatever you got, and be the next Bob Dylan. But I kind of focused a little bit more as time goes on. So the octave mandolin is one. Mandolins were really serious with us for a while. But due to circumstances got under control, while we were trying to develop our mandolin, there's a few other companies that came in with their own, and I just felt the opportunity was lost. It seemed like me too. But also I felt that was a dilution of our real purpose, which is the acoustic guitar. That doesn't mean that we won't offer some version of an amplified guitar in the future. I hesitate to say electric because somebody thinks in terms of a Stratotelli or a Les Paul. And that's not what we'd make, but what you can be sure when we do that is going to be innovative. And with that, it's either going to be wildly successful or nobody will buy it, but it'll be different. So we're working the strings. Yeah, thank you. So we're working the strings first. And who knows, we may have electric guitar strings before we actually have, I'm saying an amplified guitar. And there's a lot there. So let me give a quick acoustics analogy here. One of the problems with amplifying an acoustic guitar, everybody wants exactly the same thing. I want the unique, true voice of my guitar. I want it louder. And that's for our technology to date, that's unattainable because Larry Fishman's analogy was, okay, here's an opera singer. Let's amplify her voice so the whole audience can hear. Here, swallow this microphone. You're not getting what's happening inside the guitar is not what you want to hear. You want to hear what happens as it unfolds out in front of it. And but technology is going so far, so fast. Will worked in a company that tried to take, or did successfully take, the square cold notes of digital and round them off, my terminology, and make it sound more like a real analog, right? And that's that today. The most of the focus in amplification, electronics, and so forth when it comes to sound is trying to get it sound more natural. Isn't that ironic? So we're kind of coming at it from the other end. Again, I don't have enough to tease you with that, other than to say, I bet you'll see electric strings before you'll see our amplified guitar. There's some other ones that fascinate me, but I'll never do it in my lifetime. And I don't even know I'd have the wherewithal to do it. The violin is like I revere the violin, you know, its history, its dynamics, the magic of it. And here's something that's so bound by tradition. Everyone looks exactly the same, and yet it's changed the world. But I need another few lifetimes before I go there. So far, that's what's on my mind.
Yeah, yes. I actually did go to Cremona to the music festival there, and I happened to be there when they had the violin, viola, bass judging at the museum, the Stradivari Museum.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. You can walk down past hundreds and hundreds of violins that from 30 or 40 feet back all look identical because they have to meet very specific specifications. And as you get closer and closer to them, you realize every single one is unique.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Inspiring. Did you get a chance to see the guitars and mandolins when you were in there?
Yes, yes.
Oh, God. You know, there is nothing new. You know, sound ports, fan frets, arm bevels, you know, headless instruments, you name it, it's there in history.
Well, and if you really want to see something interesting, they have sets of drawers with most of Stradivari's toolbox all laid out under plastic. And you look at how crude and how poorly made so many of those tools were.
They're handmade, yeah.
They're handmade, but
I'm going to make a violin. I'm not going to make an art piece of my tool.
Yeah, well, and granted that these tools were used to build probably hundreds and hundreds of instruments and went through the hands of apprentices and whatever else, but still, you see how simple they were and how crude they were, and yet they created these amazing music.
I'm so inspired by that. You know, I already talked about the violin. But the elaborate stuff that was done all by hand, of course they had their knack and so forth, but the innovation in the guitar and the mandolin, people weren't bound by that tradition in the violin. And you saw crazy stuff. Most of it kind of worked. Some of it was brilliant. And there was only a few things that like, what were they thinking? We had to rush through. Because we wanted to stop. There's like a guy that's probably 108 that comes out once a day and does I think a 12-minute solo on a Strat. And you sit in this little thing. It's like a church, you know, small room, and with great acoustics. And he comes out and doesn't say anything. He just plays for 12 minutes and then goes back and puts it in his case. And I wanted to make sure I hit that. That was a thrill.
I missed that. Wow. I missed that.
Yeah, let's go into Mecca.
Yeah.
We walked down the street there, and I looked in a store window, and it was Lucci violins, Lucci, and I went, God, I wonder if they have anything to do with the Lucci meter. This is this device that measures velocity going through wood, and apparently is something that violin builders use. And we went in, and it was the son of the guy, and he was delighted to talk to us. And things have changed so much in my career. Violin makers would like gag at the idea of talking to a guitar. Violin makers would gag at the idea of talking to guitar makers because all they did is waste good wood, right? And with the innovations and also the openness that we've had in the last decades, people pay attention, both violin makers and classical makers. They're starting to share a little bit more.
So
Good
since
stuff.
we're there, what's happening in the shop?
What's happening in the shop? Let's see. We had, one thing is there's not an elephant in the room. With Carolyn, that's worked with me for 12 years, as like what an integral part of Santa Cruz. She's been here for like, a quarter of our run to date. And she befriended, supported, loved so many people in the industry that people ask me constantly, "What will you do without her?" And I want to address that. I want to say that Carolyn is irreplaceable. For who she is, what she represents, her values, and so forth. I'm so rich from having worked with her. At the same time, she runs deep. She's got a lot of other stuff going on. Primarily her music, and I love her enough to let her go. Not that it was my choice, but I love her enough that's what she needs to be doing and pursuing that. So to answer what I'm going to do without Carolyn, well, we continue to do what we do. And one of the gifts Carolyn gave me is she let me know at least 8 months ahead that this was inevitable. And I could prepare for it. And with that, I could pray and wait for inspiration and hope somebody came to the door for me, because I have no idea how I would search in the world. How do you advertise for somebody to replace Carolyn? And how many people would you talk to? And how many people would you work to for a year? Before you got heartbroken and disappointed. So anyway, answered my prayers. Will popped up, and Will was described as, like, oh, what a genuine guy, what a nice guy. It's interesting. He's a salesman at the same time. So I began the conversation with Will, and Will doesn't claim to be a replacement to Carolyn, neither do I, as we're all unique and different. But what was wonderful with Will coming in is I didn't have to drill into him, give more than you get, treat everybody like they're a customer, whether they're telemarketer or not, on and on. Will told me all those things in his opening interview. And that gave me the confidence that I knew not only would we survive, but that we keep our momentum and continue forward. Because one of the things that Will understood is we don't sell our guitars. Our guitar sales are a byproduct of our relationships with other people. And it's works really well in good to okay times. People trust us, they buy from us, our guitars speak for themselves, they sell well, and all is good. In really bad times, it's a disadvantage because people can conflate being nice with gullibility, and they might choose to cut us off before somebody, mean salesman. If you look at the big companies, Martin Taylor Gibson, they've got professional salespeople that bite, don't let go, right? So they can intimidate a small store into dropping other lines in bad times. But the thing is, the bad times are this big and the okay times are this big. So we continue with our philosophy that can only come from genuine values. We're going to be okay. And I didn't have to teach Will that. He knows it coming in. So you can tell I'm struggling here. How can I say, oh, Carolyn, no big deal. Yeah, Carolyn's a huge deal. But beautifully, we're composed of a lot of big deals, and we're also resilient. My job, is I'm less of a guitar maker today than I used to be. So my job's become managing the thrill of expectations and other people's hopes and dreams for their guitars before, during, and after. And in the case of Will or Carol, anybody, managing people's ambitions, hopes, and dreams, and sometimes that doesn't include us anymore. So it's kind of a fun merry-go-round. No, that was circuit. It's a parade of events that go through here, and luckily the foundations of the values of Santa Cruz is resilient enough to move with those things at the same time. Was there any diplomacy in that, or did I did I diss anybody?
It sounded great. I was going to say, you know, Carolyn really was kind of a foundational element of the company, and replacing a part of your foundation does put a lot of strain on other components and other parts of things, but you know, it can be done. It just takes a little time and a little bit of patience, and usually it means you end up with a stronger thing when you're done. So
boy, that's well put. Well, you know, COVID kicked our ass and made us stronger. We didn't die, but again, you know, Carolyn had the grace to allow me to do this right. The only thing she asked is I didn't announce it beforehand, so it was a surprise to many and even a surprise internally. But it allows us to, you know, like you said, we didn't have a block taken out of our foundation. We were allowed to secure that foundation before she went. So
really the big question, does Will have a good eggnog recipe? Because that's going to be really hard to replace.
Carolyn taught him everything she knows, including Edna's eggnog recipe.
All right, perfect.
A Christmas party favorite. Yeah.
Yes, we'll look forward to that.
That's great.
Maybe Will has a family recipe that he can bring to the Christmas party too.
Or something from Whole Earth catalog.
Yeah.
You know, something.
You know, Whole Earth catalog advertised the first book on guitar repair to start with, and then they actually had a book on classical guitar making, and that was one of my inspirations way back then. I remember making a pilgrimage to visit a guy based on reading about him in the Whole Earth catalog. If time allows today, you had asked about new woods, and I can spend a minute on that.
Yeah, please.
We love hearing about new woods.
Fire it up.
In my spare time, I've been working with advancements in wood processing. You know, I have a wood problem, and I disguise it by pretending I'm doing science here. There's some woods we just gave up using. Ziricote, Spruciana, which people know as Amazon, black and white ebony, African ebony, white ebony, exotic ebony, for sides and back, because we just couldn't control the cracking. And sometimes it would show up after the guitar was completed, everything was fine, it would go out in the field. And in general, we don't warranty cracks because we know they're not going to happen because we treat woods properly. In this case, the cracks would happen aftermarket, and that's just horrible disappointment for players. So there's a kindred spirit that wanted to get into the wood business, really knowledgeable as a woodworker, and we worked together to develop both drying and milling that not only we can use, that they can run their own business. And so we developed a process using a commercially available vacuum kiln, and then some expensive consultation from a guy, including a nuclear scientist that had some applications for drying processes. And what this has allowed us to do is to stabilize these really weird woods and guarantee them. And I say weird because they're, you know, most woodworkers avoid them. You see these things on the market now, and I don't mean to dismiss any builder, but the caveat is those kind of woods are prone to danger, and we know woods like let me give this, and this is a good announcement. Don't use flamed redwood on a steel string guitar top. It will pull apart. And that's just the physics of it. It's not like flame maple or flame koa. The grain, the run out goes like this, and at the flame it goes straight up and down, and it's a perforation, and that'll pull apart. And I see guitars on the internet with that. It's beautiful stuff. So anyway, with these woods now, we can not flame redwood, but the rest of them we can even vacuum kiln a block and stabilize it, and then cut that and have the proper stability and moisture content. So again, those woods that are really, really beautiful. Ziricote, it looks like all the beautiful grain you ever see in Brazilian rosewood. Really fantastic look, and we'll be able to reintroduce that and use that again. Spruciana is probably, no, I'm not even going to say that. It's there's no alternative to anything. But Spruciana is a much more affordable wood than Brazilian. It's a sister to it. It's of that nature, of that sound, and for some people that's a really nice alternative. And again, we'll be able to use that. I don't have any samples to show you. The black and white ebony, exotic ebony, that we stopped building with. We'll be able to do those now too. So it opens a new palette of not only cosmetic colors, but tone also. So that's great to have that breakthrough. I'll say this qualified statement: we can get any wood anybody wants with these qualifications. One, it has to be a tone wood. It has to sound good. Work well and have stability, but also that we have to pay the price for it, and it has to have a provenance of responsible harvest. But we're so well connected because we're so old and we've done this for so long that we know how to track down most anything, and that kind of settles the question of what kind of woods can we get for guitar making. And with our experience, we know what woods aren't appropriate. So there's a mouthful on wood.
So are you doing anything more with domestic woods? Is that still
the idea of sustainability is, of course, dear to our heart. And a lot of domestic woods that would be really appropriate for a quality guitar sound don't grow big enough to get the 8-inch piece you need for half a back, because we're talking about book matched here. The really usable parts of the tree might be 6, 7 inches. You can make a really tiny guitar, but that's not what we're looking for. So here, I'll risk this statement. We're just waiting for a larger company to introduce like a 4-piece top, a 4-piece back, to the marketplace, to really introduce it with marketing prowess to give it credibility, and I'm ready to go. We go back in history, there's lots of 4-piece spruce tops. Pianos are made out of 4-piece sections of spruce. Right. And the amount of material to make available, the amount of protecting of the resources, it'd be incredible. The only reason we don't make a 4-piece top or back is market perception, or let's call it the Martin standard. The same as straight grain Brazilian, some people think is Balbio. It's not, it's the Martin standard. They chose to do it that way, and people think it's better. So 4-piece or 6-piece, for that matter, would open up a world of stuff with domestic wood. And I'd love to be a part of that. But even though, who doesn't know Santa Cruz? A lot of people, because we don't have a loud enough horn to blow, to get the word out on that. The people that do know, we can give credibility to things because we use them, but we need a larger bullhorn to make a change in that thinking. And then there's gorgeous stuff. Look at this. This is a piece of Modesto ash. And when I was a kid, as they were building post-World War II suburbs down in the San Joaquin Valley, for whatever reason, the developers planted a Modesto ash tree in everybody's front yard, right? And they're just now reaching the end of their lives. So these trees that are now, like 70 years old, 75 years old, and so forth. And I'm looking into this. It's very oak-like. It's not ash in the sense of swamp ash or electric body like that. And I'm just fascinated with it. And so I'm looking into checking with tree services and so forth and see if we can get somebody to buck it up into maybe 6-foot sections instead of, firewood type
Yeah,
thing. That's
it-
exciting.
It's interesting that you say that no matter how great Santa Cruz's reputation is amongst people who know what you do,
Mhm.
if you took the entire 40 years worth of output that Santa Cruz Guitar has done, you're just starting to approach about 1 week's output from some of these individual big names.
Oh, for our whole career, you're
For your whole
absolutely
career,
right.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So,
You're right, and that's what I was talking about, the size of the horn or the bullhorn that you
right.
speak. We, I'm going to say probably monthly, there's somebody that comes to us with this, I'll give a composite story. I've collected guitars, I've been collecting guitars for 40 years and I have the best of everything. And I just heard about Santa Cruz. Where did you guys come from? Like, are you like in on this boutique movement? And it's like, been a lot of years since I had to explain what we were up to and who we were, but it still goes on, and that's just how it will be.
Richard, you've been amazingly gracious with your time today. Will, thank you very much. Wonderful to meet you.
Yes, Will, it's really nice to have you come
Thank you,
on
Will.
the
Wonderful to
podcast.
meet you.
Yeah.
I'll end with, I'm a Bigfoot believer.
Awesome.
I'm a total Bigfoot believer. And there is a show on that they were in Northern California and they stumbled into an old train tunnel. And I swear there were so many billets in there of redwood. I was just looking at the thing going, wonder what's in here, So I reached
Eyes are getting big.
yeah, mine got real big real fast. So I'm reaching out to the show and see if they'll divulge where that was. Because it's just in Northern Cal and it was just, they just stumbled on it.
Road trip.
Yeah, road trip.
Oh,
for sure.
that's great. I
Is
got one. I would love to hear what you find out about that, of course. Let me show you one tree.
I'll tell you, Eric's blown away with his new mahogany.
That's great.
Blown away with it.
You guys know this, but let me burden everybody else with it. Mahogany is really important to me. In fact, I've made a career goal of trying to get it the respect it deserves as a tone wood. The only reason that mahogany was considered cheaper is because it was a more readily accessible wood. The tree grows like a big piece of cake, and furniture, pianos, and so forth, way back, even before Martin. The real expensive stuff and the highly decorated stuff would have been made out of rosewood. The stuff made out of mahogany was less decorative, and they sold it for less. Right? Had nothing to do with quality. And when it came to guitars, mahogany is not an inferior tone wood to anything. So I've been trying my best to make sure people take it seriously, which is what the 29 series was all about, which we'll have to go into, Will. When we can get the good stuff, it's still one of my favorite tone woods. And I say the good stuff because, once a natural environment's been harvested and there's more sunlight, things go faster, less dense, and less tonally efficient. And so getting old growth mahogany is just a delight. I cannot help but going off on wood tangents. Thank you, Richard, your story.
Well, I just keep my eyes out for tables,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
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 Richard
This little
just gave
piece
us
of
the
redwood
intro.
comes from the Western Flyer Steinbeck's boat.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got some bigger pieces, not enough to do a guitar top, but there we go. It's got that really nice
Wow.
black smoky stuff in it. And it was redwood siding. And it was almost derelict. It almost sank. And people raised some money to restore it. And I just got one or two planks from it. And that's not going to do anything, but that's how troubled I am about wood.
Well, we wish you the best afternoon possible.
Hey, you made it better?
Yeah, and you know, keep going with that wood problem, because we all benefit from it.
I love this, and I'm grateful to both you guys for your service to guitar players and to us. And sometimes I don't know what I'm thinking until I get a chance to tell you guys. So it helps me organize.
We really appreciate it. Thanks a lot,
We do,
Richard.
we do.
Thanks,
You guys-
buddies. Thanks, Will.
You guys have a
Got
great
it. Thank
day.
you guys.
Thanks. Peace out.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or santacruzguitarplayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.